Omo a Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munishas. Omo a Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munishasane Karma Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo a Guru Vajra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo a Guru Vajra Siddhi Hum Omo a Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munishas Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munishasane Karma Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munishasane Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munishasane Karma Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munishasane Karma Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munishasane Karma Uta Vardani Shri Pakyuke Akudan Dagi Alo Pakyuke Sundan Dagi Pakyuke Tugdan Dagi Tenyerme Chikto Chingi Alo Makyuke Kudan Makyuke Sundan Dagi Makyuke Tugdan Dagi Tenyerme Chikto Chingi Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Muni Maha Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Sashi Peki Chushi Meto Tran Rirab Lingshi Nide Gembadi Sangye Shinto Te Uwaragi Drugu Namda Shingla Chepar Sho Yidama Guru Ratna Mindrala Kam Niryatayami Sangye chedan tsoge jancho pardo dani kyapso chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchre sangye sangye chedan tsoge chonam la jancho pardo dani kyapso chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchre sangye drupara sho sangye chedan tsoge chonam la jancho pardo dani kyapso chi pinchre sangye drupara sho. Nel Buddha,
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge unto enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Namo yal hai ke da luda ne jin ke drubon da da mi ke nam da drowa kwinge dranama che tsampa tham che ke to da gi che ten. Ricordiamoci
Let's remember, first of all, that the context of these teachings is, is the context of training. And the training can be divided into two parts. How to practice during the meditation sessions and how to practice in between meditation sessions. We saw how to prepare ourselves for the meditation session, the preparation of the place, the altar, the offerings, the preliminaries, taking refuge, sitting in the correct posture, how to generate a positive mind, a balanced mind through our breath, and then the taking of refuge, the generation of bodhicitta, the merit field, the invitation of the wisdom beings that become inseparable from our commitment beings, and the blessings, and then we get into the actual meditation. The first object of meditation is how to rely on a spiritual guide, and the second object of meditation is how to meditate on the preciousness of this human rebirth. So how can we do that? First, you need to understand what it means. I mean, just knowing there are not that many aspects that are novelties, that there are things that we know but that we forget, that they're not actually present in our lives. So we have a lack of conscientiousness, this understanding, this awareness of what we already know. So we need to list why this life is so precious. What opportunities do I have? So one way that we can do is to actually make a list. What are the aspects that I am free from? What are the common aspects in the world that unfortunately many beings live, and for some reason, I am not in that situation. What are those? Traditionally, 8 are listed. But beyond those 8, there are others. I'm not in the middle of war. I'm not in prison. I don't have a severe sickness. I mean, there are different situations. So we say, I have this good luck. I have this freedom. I'm free from this situation that allows me to have my space, my time, the inner space to practice the Dharma. So we make a list. And once we list them, that allows us to go over them to generate that inner feeling. Wow, I'm so lucky. The next point has to do where we reflect on what are called the 10 endowments, the things that we have. So the 8 freedoms, things that we're free from. Talk about the leisures and endowments. So now we reflect on the positive things that we have. And here, traditionally, 10 are listed, but there are many, many more. And it's right for us to reflect on them. So let's start by these 10 that are listed, traditionally speaking. So there are 10. There are 5 aspects of opportunity that pertain to yourself, and 5 aspects of opportunity that pertain to others. So we have being a human being, being born as a human, being born in a central region. That makes reference to being born where spirituality is present. This means being in a central region where Buddha is present, having complete sensory faculties, all of our 5 senses work. We have our own senses. They are working senses. So not having completed, not having done you have not committed one of the 5 deeds of immediate retribution. So these are these 5 things. So which would, among these 5, would be like killing one's own parent, one father or mother. There's the action of an act of violence towards a spiritually advanced being, like, and it says cutting, taking blood from, or killing a spiritually realized being, or creating division in the Sangha. These are called the 5 deeds of immediate retribution. I don't think any of you have killed your own parents or have created division in the Sangha. That's the most delicate of them. Creating division in the Sangha, there are very precise characteristics here, but it's one of those points that we really need to be careful of. It shows you the importance of the spiritual community and how important it is to maintain harmony. When the harmony is missing in the spiritual community, it's very serious. So even when one has done these very heavy actions, it doesn't mean there's nothing to do. One disciple of Buddha, famous, says, Padanyani Sechushin, and it's a sutra from Buddha. It says the father and the mother are to be killed. This was a disciple of Buddha, Gyalpo Makedra in Tibetan, and he had killed his own parents. During a very specific context, he killed his own parents. And, sorry if I say it like this, this was this was much more common when there were kings involved. Anyway, he strongly regretted having killed his own parents. He went to Buddha, was desperate, and he wanted to take his own life. And he really felt so guilty. And then Buddha said, "Don't worry, the mother and the father are to be killed." And he said, "Oh, well, if you say so." I said, "I don't understand." And then he starts little by little following Buddha's teachings. And then little by little he understands that he meant the attachment and aversion are to be eliminated. So father and mother make reference to attachment, desire, extreme, and the extreme of aversion, hatred, so suffering. But in that moment, if Buddha had said, "No, you did something horrible. You couldn't have done anything worse than that," I mean, he would have killed himself. Buddha, by accepting his suffering and seeing his limit, he thought there's a path for you, and then helped him little by little change his conduct and reach a state of peace. This is one example. There's nothing that we can say, okay, you did that, there's no hope for you. But for each one of us, to not have a karma that's too heavy is something important. It's somehow between. It's a freedom. It's somewhere between a freedom and an attainment. So up until that negative karma doesn't get used up, then one is always blocked. So being free from that is something very important. So, and the fifth point is having an instinctive faith in the Dharma, seeing the benefit of the practice of the Dharma, recognizing how important it is to transform our mind, follow a path taught by Buddha. These are these 5 aspects of opportunity that pertain to ourselves. We have a healthy body. We have a human body. Our sensory faculties are healthy. We're born in a place where we can access Buddha's teachings. We have a reversible karma. We haven't committed these 5 heavy karmic deeds, and we have faith in the Dharma. These are the 5 aspects of opportunity. We have this ability to know and to understand. We have access to the teachings. For example, one of the characteristics that's very particular from my point of view, we're living in a very specific historical moment, which is the arrival of Buddhism. We're at the beginning of a bridge. There's a spiritual path that existed for centuries, that came from the East, is coming to the West, adapting to our culture. And being here during this moment of transition, this allows us to go deeper into things, to not stay trapped into the habit because it's part of just being Buddhist. For example, someone who is born Buddhist or has this input as a child, that's wonderful on one side, but on the other hand, takes for granted many things. So none of us is here for a cultural reason, or is here because we can show off that we go to the temple. Maybe somebody. It- it's changing a little bit, but for a long time, going to a Buddhist center or leaving your family, leaving your friends, going to a temple, a Buddhist temple, raised a lot of eyebrows. But now it's changed a little bit. I mean, it's great for us because we're not here because I go to the center, I go to the temple because I'm going to show off. No, we're not here for a cultural reason, not because we receive any kind of material benefit, not because we receive some kind of mundane benefit. We're here because we feel a benefit through the Dharma, through the Lama, the place, the Sangha, the Dharma. We feel this benefit, and that's why we're here. And this is a very special opportunity. We have this opportunity today to be able to access teachings, even in our own language, in a way that we're able to understand. Let me give you an example. I was very struck when I heard this. A few years ago, I was in Tibet with my master, and I had a wonderful opportunity to create a special relationship with him, even though he was one of the most important masters recognized in Tibet. It was the abbot of the huge monastery, Tashi Lumpo. One day I was there with him, did these teachings. Someone came, he received him, and it was a young monk from the monastery of Shalu near Shigatse, a small monastery. And he wanted to ask for teachings, he had asked. And my master had sent a disciple to him, said, first receive these teachings from this disciple. And then he said, I received the transmission. It was a Lam Rim, but it was the middle-length version of the Lam Rim from Lama Tsongkhapa. I received it. Yes. Okay, good. It went well. The first part that has to do with the small scope, but the medium scope, but the great scope. At that point, he just gave the oral transmission because when he needed to explain bodhicitta, equalize and exchange oneself with others, and the importance of altruism, the practice of the six perfections, and the correct view of reality. He only gave the transmission because he didn't understand. The one giving the transmission didn't understand. So unfortunately, so many small monasteries. There's so many small monasteries that they don't have the basis, the foundation, to understand the meaning of why they take refuge. It becomes a habit. But we have, for example, this enormous opportunity to be able to access the teachings and the deep meanings, to be able to understand them with our own language and to not be in such a hurry. Sorry, so the one giving the transmission and the teachings, he only gave the transmission because those listening didn't have the basis to understand. Also a great practitioner, Sangasena from Ladakh. He was a great friend of Lama Ganchen. He worked so hard. One day he came to Borobudur with us, and as he was giving teachings, Sangasena said, when I was young in Ladakh, and I wanted to start studying, following Buddhism, I needed to walk for kilometers and kilometers to go to receive teachings in the middle of the snow. We didn't have good shoes. It was It was very cold. We ate what we could. We slept where we could. It was very tiresome. And if you got there, you would receive teachings. You wouldn't understand anything. Maybe you would understand a little something. Then just open and close parentheses. Once Lama Ganchen Rinpoche was in Sikkim in the north of India, and he had his disciples near to him, and his Holiness the Dalai Lama was giving the transmission of the Kala Chakra, and Rinpoche said that he was on retreat and he couldn't go, but he sent them. And then when they came back, when he came back, he said, "What did the Dalai Lama tell you?" And Shaktapu, that's what they said, which means open the umbrella. I mean, that's what they remembered because it was very, very hot. It would be disrespectful normally to keep an umbrella open, but he was saying, please keep the umbrella open, just to show there's an enormous gap between general understanding and deeper understandings, even in the same language. So Sangasen said we'd walk for hours and hours for teachings, and then we would walk back for weeks in the cold, just to receive the small things that we could. Instead, you come here. We were in Indonesia. So instead of walking in the snow, you're seated. Someone comes and you actually come by plane, very comfortable. They bring you food, and then you even invite the Lama to your house with the recordings. And then we said, "I'm sorry, you don't understand." And then you rewind and you play again, and how you can hear as many times as you want. What more do you want? With the recordings, you are so comfortable. So you have conditions today that he was saying, in his lifetime as a child, we couldn't have even dreamt of having such conditions. Having a Dharma book was something so hard. Being able to have a friend, you would take a book from a friend and you would copy it out page by page, line by line, and give it back to it. Now we have access to a frightening amount of information. Now someone takes a text in Tibetan, and with AI, it actually makes a really decent translation. We can access information today. It's a really good condition that we have, and we should recognize this. It's not to say that we're better than others, but we have special conditions. And now these conditions that pertain to us have to do with our body, our health, where we were born and raised, this context in which we find ourselves, the opportunity we have with the access to the Dharma and the teachings. The other 5 conditions, so next 5 aspects of opportunity that pertain to others. So to be in the presence of Buddha, that the Buddha has visited in this kalpa, so there are bright kalpas, eons, and dark eras. So because of the conditions and the karmic force of the beings that live there, it can happen that no holy being has manifested. There's not the manifestation of a Buddha or holy being that can be perceived by others. It's said that in this era there will be 1,000 Buddhas, and Buddha Shakyamuni was the 4th. So this means the next will be Buddha Maitreya. There's a sutra called the Sutra of the Fortunate Beings. So Buddha Shakyamuni says, he talks about these the Buddhas that will come here in the context of our planet, but this doesn't mean that it's a given. I mean, there are periods, long periods, where there aren't any holy beings present. So this is a great luck. And then there's also the aspect, not only have the Buddhas have visited, but they're also his teachings. I mean, sometimes the Buddha will come and it's quiet. And um, how often has it happened that you can be near someone who needs help, but the conditions to be able to help that person are not present? So there can also be times where there's no space for the Dharma to be shared. So we live in a time where there has been the presence of Buddha and also his teachings. And the third point is that the teachings remain, and that there are those who follow it, and that there is caring for others. So we live in a time where the Buddha has come, the teachings the teachings were taught, the teachings remain. There are those who follow it, and there's caring for others. It seems absolutely like a given, but it's not. It's like the Four Noble Truths, for example. Once seen, they seem obvious. And you think, okay, they can only be like that, but until you see them, you're completely somewhere else. And the fact is, having the opportunity to be in a context where there's where you can be with someone who can see further, or live in a context where there's an uninterrupted lineage of transmission of the teachings, that we can access not only the knowledge but the actual but also the realizations, that we can be here, reciprocal faith. None of this is a given. And the point isn't to inflate ourselves and say, look how great we are. There are many valid spiritual traditions. Absolutely. I don't believe that a Buddha manifests as a Buddha and that's it. Enlightened beings can show themselves in many forms, but among those forms, the most excellent, but it doesn't depend on his qualities, it depends on our qualities. The most excellent is the one where he can actually transmit the spiritual path of the Dharma. So how beautiful that we have these conditions, that we can access the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa, that we can access this pure lineage, that there's a sacred, peaceful place where we can listen to these teachings, that there's a sangha, so many things that are not, that shouldn't be taken for granted. And the fundamental point here for us is we should start listing not only the bad things of which we're free, but also the beautiful things. So what are the beautiful things that we have in relation to our spiritual path? I can assure you that there are many, many, and it's strange because there's so many and it's not obvious. Not everyone has these possibilities. For example, there are people who, no matter how physically close they are to someone, to a spiritual guide, it doesn't mean that they can connect and receive anything. I remember, for example, Lama Rinpoche in Milan. There was a neighbor, and instead of connecting with Rinpoche, she just was complaining about all the noise she was right too. I mean, people would arrive at all hours of the night, and people had always coming and going with their suitcases, from the suitcase. The first years of the Kumpen Lama Ganchen in Milan, where there were the monks just arrived, freshly arrived from India, and at a certain point in the morning, very early, they would do the pujas with all the instruments, and and then at one point there was one neighbor who came right by the door of the kumpen, turned on the radio of the car as loud as possible. There were people who could never connect to Rinpoche. So the condition that we have to allow ourselves to connect with each other, it's not obvious. And I repeat, I absolutely don't believe that Buddhism is the best solution. Or that Gelugpa tradition is the best compared to all others. But I'm convinced that the lineage of which I'm part of, Lama Ganchen Rinpoche, the NgalSo lineage, and within the Gelugpa tradition and the Buddhist way, is the absolute best for me, which doesn't mean that it's the best for anybody. I recognize how lucky I am to be here, and it's not something we should take for granted at all. Also, because connecting to the Dharma, there's a particular aspect, because there's so many necessary conditions. It's a little bit like falling in love. To fall in love with someone else, there's a kind of magic that happens. I mean, why this one and not that one? But there's a moment where so one doesn't even know how to explain the why. There's not something so mathematical, concrete. So why her yes and me no? I don't know. And then every once in a while, that magic can also can disappear for many reasons, or so where is that magic from before? How is it possible that I used to feel that? I mean, the same thing can happen with the Dharma. Unfortunately, there's a moment of falling in love with the Dharma, and it's a passion, it's a love, it's something that's created. There's this magic that's created, and when one is in that magic, one really needs to take care to protect that magic so it continues, because it's possible to lose it. And if that happens, if that magic it gets lost, it's really difficult to create it again. So when we're under this kind of magic and we're in love with the Dharma, it's a marvelous, marvelous condition that's not obvious. And it's one of the most important conditions. I can have everything. I can have all my material needs met. I can have someone who is available and competent to guide me. But if I don't want to walk, then I won't walk this path. So having this connection, this feeling of love and faith and the falling in love with the Dharma, like someone once came to me, I was explaining a little bit the relationship with the Guru, and he came to me and he said, Lama, thank you that you explained this to me, because if you were a woman, I would be sure to be in love. You would be in love with you. I didn't tell him that maybe he preferred men, but anyway, what happens, and then that he didn't know it. But when we get close to the Dharma, we get close to the Guru, there's this place of falling in love, and it has a tremendous amount of power in our life, and it's for nothing obvious or to be taken for granted. It's not a given, and so we really need to take the space to rejoice, allow ourselves to list the blessings that we've received, the beautiful things that we have, our intelligence, that we're sensitive, that we have mental clarity, our faith, our determination, having had a good education, having been raised in a relatively healthy environment, having received love, have a body that's healthy enough to be in contact with the Dharma, having the passion for the Dharma, this relationship of faith, being able to receive teachings in language that we understand so that we can put them into practice. That's already so much. And it's important somehow also get to the end and say, I'm the luckiest person in the world. It's not about saying, it's not, we're not competing against anyone. It's a question of knowing the good luck that we have, and thinking about the competition. Once as I was a child, and I was in Kathmandu during Tibetan New Year, and Lama Ganchen Rinpoche, in those days, he would go around and meet other lamas, his friends. And one day we received Guru Deva Rinpoche. He was a very important lama from Mongolia, the guru of Sawat Abden Rinpoche, who was just here from Mongolia. And he had very small dogs. And after the visit of Guru Deva, who was this magical person, someone, as we were walking, said, oh, I'd love to be one of those dogs. I'm so envious of those puppies that are always with Guru Deva. And I don't know if you're the puppy, if you really think in that way, but what happens is we shouldn't be comparing ourselves with others and seeing that we're better off than others, but we should absolutely recognize the beautiful things that we have. And here we need to put effort. This effort, because it's not a given. Knowing how to say, oh, look how lucky I am, without feeling better than anyone else. And so I invite you to write down the positive things that you have in your life. What are the positive aspects in your life for which you feel fortunate? And you just start writing. What are these aspects that you have? And it's not obvious. None of them are givens. And the more we're able to see these things, then little by little we can feel more and more joy, that inner sensation of, wow, look at how lucky I am. It's not to be taken for granted. It's not a given. It comes to my mind an anecdote. When we were in Mongolia recently this summer, at a certain point, Zawat Abden Rinpoche, he said to me, I wanted you to come to my room. It's kind of living room above his above the temple, where he receives only the closest people closest to him, where he has a collection of art. It's really just like a museum, and he wanted to show me some things. So he called the people that he had already met when he was there with here with Lama Ganchen Rinpoche. And there was one girl from the Sangha. She just ended up there, let's say. And she shouldn't have been there, but she was there, let's say. And there was this feeling, she had this great feeling of joy. And then Rinpoche looked at her and said, "You're the lucky one. You shouldn't be here, but you're here." And so he gave a gift to everyone. He had a gift for everyone, and he gave a gift to her too. He received her in the same way, and there really was this feeling of, wow, look at this opportunity that I have. Why I'm here, I don't know, but this is something that we all have. We have we have luck that I don't even know how to describe it. The problem is that sometimes we don't recognize it, and we take for granted the things that we have. We look at the glass half empty, and we say, "Oh, but look at this, look at that." There's in English, there's this saying.
All that comes after but is nothing but bullshit.
Anything that comes after but, anything that comes after but is just shit. So when we say, "Oh, it would be nice, but," or no, there's no but. We have unique opportunities, and then when we look, does everyone have his or her problems? Sure. Difficulties. Each one has. I've never known anyone who doesn't have issues, but at the same time, we have unique and marvelous conditions. Conditions for what? I mean, what are we talking about? Let me remind once again, conditions to transform ourselves in a virtuous way. Conditions to practice the Dharma, which is what counts the most, because at the basis, what's our objective? To be happy and to not suffer. What really can make someone happy and help him get out of his own suffering? It's not money or fame or recognition or being in a perfect couple. It's a path of coherent transformation, and transformations where one little by little reaches a state of balance and peace. And this is what really can bring more happiness and less suffering. And we have the conditions to reach that, to be able to do it. As I said before, why are we here? I don't know. I've asked myself, why me? I don't know. Someone might say, okay, you're the reincarnation of this. Okay, they've said that I'm the reincarnation of a Lama, but I'm too lucky. I mean, these are marvelous, marvelous conditions, and I mean, there's so many marvelous people in the world. Why do I have these conditions? I don't know, and I won't ever know. But what I can know is how I want to pay homage to these fortunate conditions that I have. That is up to us. So it's fundamental for us to recognize, to know how to recognize and say, wow, thank you. One of the fundamental quality along our path is gratitude. If we're not able to cultivate gratitude, feel gratitude, we will always feel like a victim, where we never have enough, where what we have is not good enough, where we're the unlucky ones, where we look to the other, compare ourselves, and we're just in that constant loop. How many times have you victimized yourself? How often, or maybe say, okay, I'm fine, but look at that person. I'd be better like that. Or once it happened, I was shocked. I was talking about the beauty of the life of Lama Tsongkhapa. Lama Tsongkhapa, it was marvelous, marvelous things in his lifetime. And someone said, but yeah, fine. But even if I had those conditions, me too, I would accept. I said, what in the world do you have to do with Lama Tsongkhapa? And you have your life, he had his. It's not a competition. Oh, me too. If I had been raised with the Dharma since a year and a half, I too would be like this and that. That we don't need to compare ourselves to others. Or you say, oh, look at that person's doing a retreat. Isn't that wonderful? That person's doing a retreat, a meditation retreat. Yeah, me too. If I was living off of um, uh, of my parents, I would do the same. No, we don't need to compare ourselves to others. We need to recognize the beautiful things that we have and the qualities that we have and know how to give value to them. Sometimes it's extremely difficult to give value to what we have. One, because we have this strange idea that it's um, it's too good to be true, or better not to highlight the positive things because they'll finish. No, it doesn't bring bad luck to look at their good luck. We need to recognize these positive aspects in our lives, because our mind creates a reality around us on the basis of our desires and the intentions that we have. There's there's an there's an explanation also in neuroscience, which I don't remember well the part of the brain, but there's a part of the brain that has a special function to sort information that comes to us, because we live an enormous quantity of information, what we hear, what we smell, what we touch, and there's a part of our brain whose job is to sort the information according to what we need. And one of the forces that determines that sorting is our desire, what we want, how we see the world. The more I complain, the more I will look for a coherence between my disappointment and the world in front of me. If I feel abandoned, I'll look for proof that I've been abandoned, because we want this inner coherence. We don't want the truth. The more I have a sense of gratitude, the more I will see the beautiful things around me and what is good for us. Feeling alone, abandoned, and the victim of the world, or feeling happy and loved and grateful. What's good for us? What's interesting is the more I'm able to feel grateful, the more I'll be able to see the reasons to support this gratitude. The more I feel like a victim of the world, the more critical I am, the more unhappy I am, the more reasons I will find to support those feelings. So it's really important for us to put effort into rejoicing and feeling grateful. I've seen attitudes or people, they don't relax until they find a reason to complain. It's a habit that's so strong. I remember one specific situation. It was actually a very nice moment. It was this person's birthday. Everybody was really kind to this person. He received gifts. Everything was fine. There was nothing to complain about. And I saw that the person was really uncomfortable, and at a certain point, as if the person that couldn't contain himself anymore, he found a reason to complain. And after complaining, then the person relaxed. Because it's a habit that was so deep that one looks for that coherence. It needs to correspond. if I feel nervous, I need to find a reason. If I feel abandoned, there needs to be a reason to why I feel like this. And we look for these reasons around us. If I feel lucky, there has to be a reason. But we can train and educate ourselves to be grateful, to be satisfied, to rejoice and recognize beautiful things that we have. And this process is that we educate ourselves. So one of the first steps along our path is to generate a deep feeling of self-esteem, where I recognize my qualities and I say, I can do it. If not me, then who? If I'm not the one practicing Dharma, who's going to practice the Dharma? There's the beautiful saying, if not me, then who? If not now, then when? Actually, if I, who has all of these optimum conditions to practice the Dharma, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? And if I don't do it now, what do I need to wait for? The day that the day I go on the day I stop working, if that ever happens. But as we get older, the less energy we have, and the more we solidify our habits. Oh, first I want to meditate. I don't have time. Then I want to meditate, but it's not the right moment. And then when the right moment comes, I don't have the energy to meditate. We need to do it now. Take advantage of the opportunity that we have today. So the next 2 points that are connected about reflecting on the great benefits of attaining this leisure and opportunity. And so why is it precious? Because, I repeat one more time, we have more than what we need. We have a comfortable life. We can take care of our health. We live in a safe place. None of those things are a given. We have who guides us correctly on the path, in our own language, in a way that's accessible, etc., etc. We have this desire to practice. We're sincere along our path. This is for nothing obvious. And what allows for all of this? And what's my objective in all of this? At least to die a person better than the one that was born. But if I'm able to take advantage, this allows me to really come into contact to the better parts, the best parts of myself, and prepare myself for my death. And I'm very proud, and I can say with particular joy that in these years I saw more than a reality, people in the Sangha who really took advantage of their life in a sincere way, and they were able to die well. And to die well means, among other things, to assure yourself a good rebirth. And of course, also dying with serenity and peace. So the most recent case, and the ceremony will be today at 6 o'clock for Maitri Devi, Letizia. She was a girl from our Sangha who died recently, and she at a certain point, she wasn't well. She was a very rare and a very fast tumor. and she faced this. She faced the end of her life with a level of peace and gratitude and love, like I've rarely seen. And it's important to see. I remember Lama Rinpoche saying, there will be the day where we will be able to say, this person here in Italy, in the West, reached enlightenment. And I'm not talking about people who are the great meditators in the Himalayan mountains. I'm talking about people who took refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, who practiced with sincerity and were able, in the context of life here, to really make their life meaningful, to live well and to die well. And this is a marvelous, marvelous gift, to such a degree that when someone is able to die well, one of the clearest signs is the people near, they stay with a happy, a good feeling, even if there's the feeling there's a missing, the difficulty of accepting the death of someone so young or the death of that person. But there's this feeling of lightness. And I've had the great opportunity of accompanying more than one person in the death process, and it's a real honor. And this is all possible not through strange miracles, but through the conditions that we have that are taken advantage of and used in the right way. And these conditions, we have them. And that's why it's something that goes beyond words but what worries me is that often we just take it for granted. And what we need to understand as well is that it's not easy to obtain, to have a rebirth with all the necessary conditions. We need to have maintained a good morality, which means having abandoned what's bad for us, cultivated what's good for us, have dedication to helping others, a virtuous view towards the future, to live a life that is healthy and virtuous, to have healthy and virtuous conditions. We need to have very, very strong links with the Dharma to find ourselves connected to the Dharma in the future. If we're here today, it's not because, oh, we saw a video about Dharma and then we're here. No, if we see someone and we're so attracted and we're pulled into the Dharma, it's because we had created the causes in the previously. So if we put together all these causes to have a good rebirth, the way we have now is not obvious. But once we have these conditions, if we know how to take advantage of them correctly, we can assure our continuity. So it's not that, okay, I won the lottery in the past, now what's going to happen? No, but it's we really need to secure this link. It's not because I am a friend of the Lamas that it's going to go well for me. No,
Ok? Quindi ogni momento della nostra vita.
So every moment of our lives is important for us to try to go back to this sense of gratitude and the recognition of the great luck, the fortune that we have, and to not take for granted the positive things that we have in our lives are the fact that even that we know how to read and understand and receive love, to give love, to have friends. There's so many marvelous things. And if we take them for granted, then we are not taking care of their value. So we should really feel strongly this deep inner feeling of gratitude in the sense of preciousness. One reason why it's difficult to obtain the conditions that we have is because when we enter into a vicious cycle, it's really difficult to get out of it. When someone gets into a cycle of anger and hatred, arrogance, and other cycles of life, one stays trapped in there and sees everything through this filter. It's very difficult to but when we're able to get out and create a virtuous cycle, and we're in a virtuous cycle of our lives, wow, I need to make sure that I need to really make sure that I maintain. And of course, there are ups and downs within the cycle, but it's an opportunity that we don't want to lose. So, just a minute, let me find. So the essence here is to allow ourselves to list the great fortune that we have, all the positive aspects we have in our life, and not put ourselves in a position of superiority, but recognize how lucky we are and realize that we can't let it go because it's precious and difficult to obtain. So this takes us to the next point of reflection, which is, okay, I want to take full advantage of this life of leisure and opportunity. How? And so now we have the methods to develop to make it precious, and it's divided into three parts. To train, we can so we've got the purpose of training with the three types of persons. So now I've relied correctly on a spiritual guide. I recognize the preciousness of this life of leisure and opportunity. So now I need to develop two things: love towards myself and love towards others. This is the first way to make this life meaningful. And to do this, to love myself, there are two levels. I can love myself with a mid-term, or also with a long-term view. And what do we mean by loving ourselves? But clarifying what is good for me and having that effort to cultivate it, have clarity about what's harmful, and having the strength to abandon those things. This also means to live our life where life is not an end in and of itself, but it's actually a means to grow spiritually, to familiarize ourselves putting ourselves at the service of others. So first of all, we need to recognize what's good for me, and we generate the effort to do that. And we see what's harmful for us and generate the force to abandon it until we get to the point where we develop our qualities to benefit others. We include others. So the path is divided into 3 parts. These 3 parts are called kibuchung, kibuching, and kibuching. The translation that's given is called it's called the lower, the middle, and the higher scopes. Inferior is not a great word. This let's say they're beginners, and there are 3 levels of consciousness to get to, to a superior level. We can't get to being a superior level person without starting from the beginner level. Sometimes we have this idea, I want to go to the Mahayana bodhicitta, I want to go to the great scope. No. If I don't familiarize myself, if I don't realize the middle scope, the common middle scope, I can't get to the great scope. What are these 3 scopes? The first one, the first objective, the first being is the being in his life who gives priority to one's own coherence, his own level of virtuousness, and where the long term so what's lived today is seen through the lens of what it will bring in the end of this life, or in this life and in the next. So this present moment exists not as a reaction to the past, but as a cause for the future. And if we think about ourselves with a lot of sincerity, living with this awareness that of a faraway future, and how the actions of today are the causes for the future, it's not a given. Usually we just think about now. So even that first scope is not nothing. It's where we talk about the law of karma, the law of impermanence, where we see that what we do brings a result. I take care of what I do today because I want to take care of what I do tomorrow. The intermediate scape, one understands, okay, but a good rebirth is not enough. I want to get out of samsara completely. It's not enough to have a rebirth with favorable conditions. Who knows? Who knows? I'm able to take advantage of them. It's one recognizes, no, what I want is to get out of this cycle of suffering, and with the recognition of wanting to get out of samsara. In other words, Buddha described 3 types of sufferings. The suffering of suffering, the suffering of change, and the suffering and the all-permeating suffering. And at the basis, we want to avoid the suffering of suffering. The suffering of suffering is everything that we normally call suffering. So it's heat and cold and hunger and thirst and the suffering of our body and negative emotions, the suffering of the mind. And you don't need any kind of spiritual realization to understand that you want to avoid suffering. No one wants to suffer. That's what we all have in common. So the small scope is when one recognizes not only the suffering of suffering, but one also recognizes the suffering of change as a cause of one's suffering. There are things that momentarily help us feel good, but that just don't resolve anything. Being seen by others, being recognized, having moments of sensory pleasures, or having material things, receiving compliments, etc., etc. All these things are we like, don't we? I mean, we're happy to receive a gift that we like, right? If someone we love comes and caresses us, we like it, absolutely. So Dana, who just heard her friend out there. So what happens is when we have something that we like, okay, but it doesn't sustain happiness. It's sensory pleasures, material wealth or goods, recognition of our image, affection that we receive from others. They're wonderful things, but they don't sustain this happiness. And no matter how much we receive these things or get these things, they're temporary. This is the suffering of change. It manifests as happiness, but over time is a cause of suffering. It's not enough. I need to create a healthy life that allows me to uphold this state of well-being. The next step is where I recognize that my suffering actually it comes from my mind and body that's polluted by my karma. So as long as I'm taken by all these negative mental defilements, from hatred to dissatisfaction to jealousy, ignorance, as long as I'm taken by all of that, plus my negative, plus my karmic force from the past, there will be suffering, and that's the all-permeating suffering. If I want to be free from that, that is the superior scope. So if one is able to see that and recognize that one doesn't want to just get out of samsara, but when they're able to see, that we want to get out of samsara not just for ourselves but also for others, that's the superior scope. So we need to start with the first. These are the 3 steps. So if we ask ourselves, this graduated path to enlightenment, how is it structured? First, we rely correctly on a spiritual guide. We recognize this precious opportunity we have in this life, and once we recognize the preciousness of this life, how can I make it meaningful? By familiarizing myself with the 3 scopes: the small, the middle, and the great scope. So we begin by training in the lesser scope. We're going to do this, we'll pick it up next time in detail, but the fundamental point that we have here, and I just like to touch on briefly, is that we have a unique opportunity, wonderful opportunities, conditions. How long is this going to last? I mean, here we're here. Is it going to last a couple years? Maybe. Come on. Yeah. At least a couple years. Actually, we don't know. The truth is, today we're here. What's going to happen tomorrow? We really don't know, which it doesn't just mean death. Maybe at a certain point, and maybe we have social stability that that at a certain point we don't have anymore, or economic stability that we don't have anymore. I was remembering some of my masters and friends who lived through the Cultural Revolution in Tibet. So one of the ways that they described to me was a period where everything, all external reference points just no longer existed. Where the only thing that sustained them were their inner references, where there was absolute poverty. In the monastery of Tashi Lumpo, the people were forced in Tibet and all of China. So these objects of veneration and respect, they were forced to destroy. The stupa, the stupas of the Panchen Lama, they were, except for one, they were all destroyed. And some people, they got to points of such hunger that some of the people actually, they ate they were so hungry, they actually ate the embalmed bodies of the masters of the past that were in the stupas. It's frightening to think. I mean, how could that have happened? And yet it happened. And those who lived through this, were they expecting something like that? No. And with this, I don't mean to put fear in anybody's heart and to say that it's going to happen, but I'm convinced that the external reality, like our inner reality, even the social reality of our social structure, etc., it's all impermanent. Today we have conditions. We don't know how these conditions are going to be tomorrow. We have an opportunity to be here together. I don't know tomorrow how it's going to be. In the past, every year, we used to go every year to Borobudur in Indonesia on pilgrimage with Lama Ganchen. It seemed like we would do that forever, and then at a certain point, it just, we weren't able to do it. And of course, we set it as an objective to be able to do in the future, but I have no idea how to organize something like that now. Okay, so the key is to take advantage of the present moment, really take advantage to the best of our ability, and recognizing that what we have today may not be tomorrow. And so a new day, there could be wonderful things or difficulties, but things change. Maybe we even get sick. At a certain point, we die. And I repeat, I've said many times, I mean, dying is not the problem. Living badly is the problem. The problem is not taking the essence of this life, not using the opportunities that we have. But let's remember that we're here today. We don't know tomorrow. And it's no joke. I deeply thank, I mean, about 2 years ago, I was coming to the temple to guide the session of a Tarachittamani, and as I was on my way, I had a karmic meeting with an insect that it didn't even sting me, but I came very, very hot with a very um, swollen eye. And then I left the Gompa because I wasn't able to stay there. And then as on my way home, I passed out. The inner sensation was actually kind of pleasurable. I fainted. It was pleasurable. I got home. There was an ambulance that was waiting for me. And at a certain point, just to understand what had happened, I talked to two doctor friends. They said this, that, and the other happened. I was red from my head to toe, and my doctor friends said, "You were really lucky. Your body reacted well, was able to react in the right way, but it was really dangerous. It was very, very risky." And that generated a very important feeling of this sensation, this non-conceptual sensation of this certainty of our own mortality, where one feels that, when one feels that one can die any moment. And it's real. It's no joke. And if we start giving examples, I could just give you example after example all evening long. People who were here one day and not here the next, young, old, those who think they're going to die, it looks like they're going to die any moment, they're there forever. I don't know. They seem immortal, and others instead, you think they're going to live forever, and then it looks like they have their whole life ahead of them. And then their life ahead of them is what it was, long or short. So I invite you to with sincerity, first of all, list the things that we are grateful for, the things that we are free of. Even, for example, even just turn on the news. Oh, thank goodness I'm not there. Thank goodness I'm not there. You don't need to go. You don't need to look so far. The things that we're free of. And then also make a list of all the beautiful things that we have and recognize from a physical level all the way to a spiritual level, these qualities and the positive things we have, our family, our friends, our guru, the Dharma, all the beautiful things that we have. How wonderful that I have all these things. I don't know how long it's going to last. And sooner I'll die. As we said this morning, during the day I'm distracted, and at night I sleep. The objects of knowledge are many, and soon I'm going to die. We said it a little bit differently this morning. So during the day, we're distracted. At night, we sleep. The objects of knowledge are many, and soon we will die. And the soon will die is very real, because we spend our life distracted, and it goes by so quickly. And when it's over, it's over. And when that moment of death comes, you can do everything you want to contrast it. But when death comes, there's no choice. I've seen this so many times. And it's not something to be afraid of. The problem is not dying. The problem is not living well. The problem would be dying a person who's worse than the one that was born, living a life where one cultivates more and more mental defilements, transforming in a negative way. So it's a problem because there's a solution to this. So really, take the reins in your hands. Let's not do like a friend of our, an acquaintance of our friend Alfredo from the who worked for the World Bank. He was the director of the World Bank. This man, he traveled all around the world for work, and every year he needed to do a full checkup in the hospital. He lived in Washington, D.C., and between one meeting and another and all the things he had to do, he went and did his checkup, he went to work. At a certain point, he received a message from the hospital saying, put your affairs in order, which is which explains, which shows that you're going to die. It says you have a tumor that's widespread throughout your whole body, full of other tumors, and they gave him 2 months to live. He was shocked. He went home. He canceled all of his work appointments. He took the books that he wanted to read. He took the phone number of his son that he picked up the phone to call his son that he hadn't spoken to for years. So what do I want to do before I die? How do I want to live my life? So 2 days like that he spent, and then he received a call from the president of the hospital. Said, we are really sorry for the mistake. There was someone with the same name, and your health is perfect. You're not going to die. And he said, shh. He closed the books, he put away his son's phone number, and he went and lived. He lived as he was living before. He went back to work, and he lost this opportunity. Remember, we don't know when we're going to die. We have no idea. The day that it does come, we welcome it. I remember once there was a boy that I accompanied just a few days before his dying. It was one of the most, it was an honor to be close to someone who was about to die. And he asked me for help. He was so curious about death. At a certain, he was very passionate about life. He did many, many beautiful things. He wasn't thinking, oh, thank goodness I'm going to die. No, but at the same time, he was really curious about dying, and he was really approaching it well. And it was beautiful. And the people around, the mother, the sister, they were fine because he was fine, and he was able to really face his own death positively because he knew how to also face his life well. So let's face every day well. Use it to the best of our ability. No excuses to go round and round. It's fundamental for us to be at peace with our past, to not create new conflicts in the present, to be able to look to the future with hope. But let's begin, first of all, by putting ourselves at peace with our past, cleaning up any kind of resentment that is there, asking forgiveness where forgiveness is due. This is all fundamental. No regrets. And let's remember that our life is in our own hands. Today we have marvelous, marvelous opportunities. Let's use them to the best of our opportunity, the best of our abilities. We can all do it. There's no one here that I see and say, this one, no. It happened to me once. It was a mistake. But I have to admit that there was a moment where I tried to help and I really trying to help someone, and I thought, okay, there's not much to do here. The only choice is for this person to be reborn, because those negative habits were so deep, even on a physical level, and one is in that loop and you just can't get out of that loop. And instead, that person came out of it, not completely, but a big part. And that was a really lesson for me. Never give up, never lose hope. So really, let's take our life in our own hands and put a sincere effort into practicing. It's not about being Buddhist. It's about sincerely putting effort into making a positive transformation. Be part of the solution and not the problem. Live our lives in a way that corresponds to how we want the world to be, how we want to be, and allow ourselves to familiarize ourselves with the preciousness of these opportunities, of the life that we're living. And so to do this, you need to make a list, reflect on those points, sit down and repeat to yourself again and again why you are lucky. Feel that joy, feel that sense of gratitude for the opportunities that we have, and stay in that mindset until you generate a sense of urgency. And at that point, I love myself. I learn how to love myself, how to love others, to be able to love others. Okay, just as in closing, one makes one's life meaningful not by doing great things, but by being great. This is the key. I don't care if at the end you did important things. What is important is if at the end of the day I was able to be a positive influence to myself and to the world around me with my own being. So now it's time for our dedications. Now we have the dedications of the Lam Rim that we can put up on the screen. Here I have the text open because I promised a disciple of mine in Tibet I promised that I would have I've used so I promised him I would use this text when teaching the Lam Rim, and here I opened to where we were today, but I didn't have the opportunity to actually read from it today. Then, after the dedications, we will take a short break, and then we'll get ready for the ceremony. At 6 o'clock, we will have a ceremony for Devi, who left her body recently. And we're going to connect with people in Brazil, friends and family, Sangha, so we can dedicate a moment to her. And if you can participate, you're welcome. The Chanchuk practice will be done, which is the best practice that we can do when someone leaves his or her body. In just a few words, what we'll do is we will invite the being who left her body to come here, thank her, show love. We do a spiritual practice together. We explain to her that she's no longer in that body, and then help that person not be attached to that body. And then we say goodbye, and we let that person continue on, for her spiritual path, and to continue on. So today that will be done for Devi, for Letizia. So now for the concluding prayers for the Lam Rim.
Dove sono finite? Sashipu ki choshi meto chamare rabalingashi ni de gempadi sange shintu te ulwarki drokunonam dashingla chopar jetsun lame kutse raptenchi namkara trinle losan tempe dreme sasumgi drove munsela taktu ne gyurchi nimo dele tsindele nime kuyan delekshi ninsen taktu delekpe kuncho sumki chingilo kuncho sumki ngodrubutsol kuncho sumki trashishon Idam Guru Ratna Mandrala Kam Niryatayami Kevam Dine Rindu Bele Tsonyeni Katra Yangpa Kanshi Sakpate Lomi Mari Gijon Drowana Namdren Gyawe Wangporo Dagyuruchi Terma songwe tserab kundu yang jambe yange tsewe jesune tempe rimba kunsan lamge cho nyene drupe gyalnam nyeche sho rangi chishin tokpe lamge ne shukdra tsewe drangpe tapke ki drowe yige mumba selche ne gyawe tempa yurin zingyuruchi Temba rinchen chogi makya pam kyapkya nyambra gyurpe chokterani ninje chimbo yiraba kyopa ye pende dedere serwara chebra sho seche gyawe mechon tinglele lektro chancho lamge tarde namge yela palterashi gyawe tseba ringto kyongruchi Lamsan drube tungen drubche chi gege seche mida Tsera kundu gyawe ngakpa ye Namda lamdan chalwara margyur che Kanse tekpa chokla cho 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 Tsushin drubla tsimpa te tse Tude namge taktu trokche ching Trashi gyatso chokun Kyab kyur che kewa kuntu yanda lama dang Pela long che chi Sadan lamge yunte rabzo ne Dorje change kopa Nyur tobe sho nimo dele tsendele Ninchen taktu delek pe kuncho sumki chingi lo kuncho sumki ngodrubot sol kuncho sumki trashi yeshu.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.
At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realization and sprinkle all the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Ripetete dopo di me.
Repeat after me.
Sem cho sudro. Che lam tudro. Lam la parce. Mion warsho. Possa la mente di
May the mind become the Dharma. May the Dharma become the path. May the path be free from interferences.
May the mind become the Dharma. May the Dharma become the path. May the path be free from interferences. Sem cho sudro. Che lam tudro. Lam la parce. Mion warsho. Mi me tserwe terche enche Drime kempe wampo jampe du opon omalu jom se sangwe et son kapa lo san antrakpe shabla asolvade. In questo modo
In
concludiamo.
this way, we conclude for today. Tomorrow, there will not be teachings because I have a commitment with the center of Turin, the Buddha, the center of the Medicine Buddha Center in Turin. So if anyone's in Turin tomorrow, we see you tomorrow. Be at the Medicine Buddha Center of Turin. And since there was a Saturday free, I said, let's take advantage. So now there will be this ceremony. So I will organize myself to prepare what I need to prepare. So we'll see each other in about 15 minutes. And as Rinpoche said often, we see you, sometimes see you all the time. So